All right, let's just jump right in. We're about to peel back thousands of years of history to meet a man you think you know, but you probably don't. Confucius. So try to forget everything you've heard. We're about to meet the sage, the warrior, and the reformer.
So be honest for a second. When I say the name Confucius, what's the first image that pops into your head? Some wise old man with a long white beard, right? Or maybe just some vague fortune cookie sayings. Okay, hold on to that thought.
Because what if I told you the reality was completely different? That the frail old man was actually a powerful warrior? That those fortune cookie quotes were part of a radical plan for social reform? And that the man we associate with rigid, dusty rules spent over a decade as a political exile, desperately searching for a ruler who would just listen to him? This is the Confucius we're here to meet. Let's start with maybe the most surprising part of his story, the man behind the myth, the unexpected master.
It might sound kind of crazy, but Confucius was an expert in what they called the 6 arts. These were the essential skills for any perfect gentleman back in ancient China. And, as you can see, 2 of those arts were pretty hardcore martial skills: archery and charioteering. His own father was a famous military commander, and it definitely seems like Confucius inherited some of that strength. This quote here kind of shows you how even people in his own time saw him. They knew he was a genius, but his skills were so broad, they couldn't quite pin him down. You know, when he heard this, Confucius actually joked with his students. He said, "So what should I be known for? Charioteering or archery? I think I'll go with charioteering." The whole point is he was so skilled, he could have been famous just for his fighting ability alone. So, why did this warrior scholar end up focusing on philosophy and ethics? Well, to get that, you have to understand the world he was born into, a world of absolute total chaos.
So, take a look at this timeline. For centuries, the Zhou dynasty had kept things stable. But by 771 BCE, its power just completely collapsed. China shattered into this patchwork of warring states, and it was right in the middle of this violent, unstable era known as the Spring and Autumn period that Confucius was born. Society was, as one historian put it, just plunged into endless chaos and turmoil. There was no central authority, and things like intrigue and assassination were totally common. It was a really deep moral and political crisis. This is why Confucius wasn't some philosopher sitting in an ivory tower. No way. He was living through a complete breakdown of civilization. So his entire philosophy became a direct, practical answer to the violence and disorder he saw every single day. And his answer was nothing short of a complete blueprint for rebuilding society, a plan to bring back harmony from the ground up. You see, the ultimate goal for any ruler was something called the mandate of heaven, this idea that you had the divine right to rule, but only if you governed justly. The problem was, in this era of chaos, nobody could claim it. Restoring that mandate was the ultimate challenge. Confucius believed you couldn't fix the country without first fixing the people. So his system was this revolutionary blueprint for creating order that starts right here with the individual, and then radiates outward to the family, to the community, and then finally to the entire nation. At the very heart of his system was the individual. The goal was to cultivate the junzi, basically the ideal virtuous person. And the curriculum for this wasn't just about reading books. It was a whole person education through the 6 arts to create a complete human being, someone who was artistic with music, disciplined with rites, and physically capable through archery and charioteering. So once individuals were cultivated, the next layer out was society. For Confucius, social harmony came from everyone understanding their role and acting with respect and, well, propriety within all of their relationships. And the absolute cornerstone of this social order was something called filial piety. Now, this is way more than just respecting your parents. It's the idea that a stable, respectful family is like a miniature version of a stable, respectful state. If you can't get it right at home, you have no chance of getting it right anywhere else. And of course, there's his most famous teaching, what we call the Golden Rule. It's this simple, powerful ethic that binds all of these relationships together, a universal principle for creating a decent, humane society. But how do you actually learn these virtues? This is where Confucius had a brilliant answer that sounds surprisingly modern. He taught that we cultivate ourselves through social rituals, using this powerful metaphor he called polishing the jade. The metaphor is just perfect, isn't it? He's saying our character is like raw jade. It has potential, but it needs to be carefully shaped and polished. And for Confucius, the tools we use for that polishing
are our shared social rituals. And when he says ritual, he's not just talking about big, formal ceremonies. He means the small, everyday things we do. A simple handshake gives us a template for a peaceful interaction. Waiting patiently in line is a ritual where we put the group's harmony above our own immediate desire. It's these small acts that, over time, polish us into better, more considerate people. So, we've seen the warrior and the philosopher, but his ideas weren't just born in a vacuum. They were really forged in a life of hardship and frustration.
This is that classic image of the man we know as Confucius, but his real name was Confucius, and his life was anything but peaceful. It was a constant struggle. Get this, he was only 3 years old when his father, a military officer, died. He and his mother were left in poverty, and he actually had to work menial jobs as a young man just to get by. His whole drive for education came from this deep desire to rise above his circumstances. And that struggle just continued into his adult life. He spent 13 long years. Think about that. 13 years as a political exile, wandering from one feudal court to the next, just pitching his blueprint for harmony. And yet no ruler was willing to fully implement his vision. Can you imagine the frustration? Here's a man with the cure for a sick society, but nobody wanted to take the medicine. But here's the incredible irony. In his own lifetime, he probably felt like a failure. But after his death, he became the single most influential teacher in Chinese history. You know, he never saw himself as an innovator, but as a transmitter. He saw his mission as collecting all the scattered wisdom of the past, organizing it, and then refining it into a system that would preserve the very core of Chinese civilization through the ages. And just look at this legacy. His teachings, which were written down by his students in the Analects, became the very bedrock of the Chinese state. For 2,000 years, if you wanted to be a government official, you had to pass exams based on his philosophy. His ideas on family, respect, and order shaped not just China, but also Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. The wandering exile became a pillar of civilization. So we come back to the man, the warrior, the reformer, the political outcast who just never gave up. And it leaves us with a final question, right? In our own chaotic times, in a world that is still desperately searching for a blueprint for harmony, what can we still learn from the master?